things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day to you and yours. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day, whether you're here in the Tampa Bay area or abroad. A lot of great things going on today, a lot of things going on this week. Excited to be here with you. It's been a while since I've been here in my own place. Back on the road tomorrow at Amalie Arena as the Tampa Bay Lightning take on the Calgary Flames. Big win last night against the Edmonton Oilers. 6 wins in a row for the Bolts. Woo! That team is on fire. We'll talk all things Lightning with our guy, Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com, joining us at 1 p.m. today. Shout out to our guy, Dolan, and David Terry checking in from Cancun. That's dedication, my guy, David Terry. Great stuff there. And Dolan, yeah, Gators with a big comeback, but they lose to Mike White in Georgia. So I know that felt good for Coach up there. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube here until about 2 o'clock today. Don't forget the Beckles and Recher podcast on today around 3:15 right here on my YouTube channel. So like and subscribe. A lot of great things there. I'm also going to be at the Lightning Block Party live tonight with a very special guest. We can't announce who. So if you didn't get your tickets, you're probably SOL. But if you ever get a chance to go to one of these Lightning Block Party live broadcasts over there at the Cigar City, Cigar City Tap Room there on Thunder Alley, go check it out. It is amazing. You definitely want to go check out one of those. Last week it was Andrei Vasilevsky, and people were freaking out. I know they released it today with Greg Wolf and Braden Coburn. What a great discussion with Vasilevsky. He's been on fire. And I really want to get into the Vazzy talk when Eric joins us at 1 o'clock today, because he's kind of flying under the radar, ironically enough. Isn't it wild to think that? Andrei Vasilevsky flying under the radar. The big cat, man. He just continuously plays well. He's given up one goal, and one goal. You got to love it. You got to love it. So yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later on as well. Also today, 12:10, Josh Queipo is going to join us from Pewter Report to talk all things Bucks, to discuss everything going on with the NFL Combine. At 12:35 today, a very special discussion with Cole Russo and Alexa Russo. University of Tampa baseball and softball, an iconic name here in the Tampa Bay area. Russo, what is it like having dads that play there at the school, growing up in a baseball family, and now being big-time contributors to the baseball and softball teams that are kicking ass right now in Division II. So you do not want to miss that. Again, follow me at JRetcher. I'm a little bit of everywhere. And yeah, I can't do this stuff without you guys. So thank you so much. Did you see what was just released? Everybody started talking about it today, but the report cards from the NFLPA has come out, and it's all the rage right now on social media. Everybody's talking about where their team stacks up. And I know there's a lot to decipher. There's a lot to go through, but I really want to go through the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rankings here and where they stack up against the rest of the league, and also give you some insight of where this stuff comes from, because it's a long article and it could be a pain in the butt to read. But I'm going to have the video for you right here, and I'm going to kind of go through them pretty quickly to give you some context. So if you need to look back at what happened or what's this all about, you can watch this video and then, let everybody know that this is where the Buccaneers fall short. And they do fall short. Let's take a look at the report cards from the NFLPA regarding our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, last year they were 24th. The year before that, they were 26th. This year, they're 27th among the 32 teams in the National Football League. And here are the criterion. First, treatment of families. Yeah, all right, here we go. First, Treatment of families, 25th out of 32 teams. 25th out of 32 for a C minus. The Bucks provide daycare during home games and stop charging $90 per child this year. They're one of 10 teams that do not offer a family room during home games. Players rate the post-game family area 6.42 out of 10, ranking them 28 out of 32 teams. Players feel that the team organizes team events several times per year, which ranks 14th out of 32 teams, so a little better there. How about the food/dining area? Not good there either. 28th out of 32 teams for a C minus. The Bucks rate the taste of their team's food 6.42 out of 10, a ranking of 30 out of 32. No bueno. They rate the freshness to their food 7.16 out of 10, a ranking of 28 out of 32. And the players rate their dining area 7.62 out of 10, ranking it 25th out of 32 NFL team dining areas. Wow. This one's a little better. The nutritionist/dietitian, 16th out of 32 teams, a B+. 89% of players report they get an individualized nutrition plan, ranking the Bucks 9 out of 32. The players feel that their team dietitian is very accessible, ranking 20 out of 32. Players are very complimentary of the team's dietitian. Okay, better there. The locker room. 21st out of 32 teams for a C. 84% of players feel they have enough room in their individual lockers, a ranking of 17 out of 32. 78% of players feel the locker room size is adequate, ranking the Buccaneers 21 out of 32 teams. Players have several complaints about cleanliness, including poor ventilation and a persistent bad smell. 44% identify ongoing plumbing issues in the locker room. Woof. The training room. A C+, 24 out of 32 teams. 84% of Bucks players feel they have enough full-time trainers, ranking them 24th out of 32. 80% of players feel they have enough full-time physical therapists, a rank of 21 out of 32. 74% of players feel they have enough hot tub space, a rank of 21 out of 32. And 76% of players feel they have enough cold tub space, a rank of 23 out of 32. Players feel that renovations and upgrades are needed in the tub room. This one is a good one. The training staff, it is 21st out of 32 teams for a B, but 88% of Buccaneers players report that they receive enough one-on-one training treatment, ranking them 16 out of 32. And the players feel that the training staff slightly contributes to their overall success, ranking them 24th out of 32. Weight room, 19th out of 32 for a B. The players feel their weight room equipment is good quality, ranking them 21 out of 32. The players feel that they have adequate space to train in the weight room, ranking 18 out of 32. Strength coaches, this is the high mark of the day. An A, 6th out of 32 teams. 100% of players report they get an individualized plan from their strength coaching staff, one of 3 teams in the league with a perfect score. The players feel that their strength coaches moderately contribute to their overall success, a rank of 10 out of 32 teams. Team travel, 26th out of 32 for a C minus. 65% of the Bucks players believe they have a comfortable amount of personal space on team flights, ranking them 26 out of 32. Damn, only 65%. Players feel that their team's travel schedule is somewhat efficient, rank of 18 out of 32. Players must sit in smaller seats in the back of the plane while the staff sit in the larger first-class seats. Ruh-roh. Head coach. A lot of people were wondering about this one for the Bucks. A B+, 23rd out of 32 teams. 100% of Buccaneers players, all of them, feel their head coach Todd Bowles is efficient with his time. He is one of 6 coaches across the league to receive a perfect score. The players feel that Bowles is moderately receptive to locker room feedback on the team's needs, ranking him 24th of 32 in the league. And then finally, and we hear this a lot when it comes to the other team they own, Manchester United, but it doesn't make nearly enough noise here on this side of the pond here in Tampa Bay. But listen to this one regarding the Glazers' ownership of the Buccaneers. It's a D+, 27th out of 32 teams. The Glazer family's average rating for perceived willingness to invest in the facilities is 6.50 out of 10 from the Bucks players, a ranking of 27th out of 32 owners in the league. Players feel that the Glazer family slightly contributes to a positive team culture, a rank of 27 out of 32, and the players feel that the Glazer family is somewhat committed to building a competitive team, a rank of 26th of the 32 NFL owners. So there is the entire breakdown of the report cards from the NFLPA. And listen, it just doesn't paint the Buccaneers in such a great light. you would think a team like this would have more capabilities. And again, looking across the pond, looking at Man U and everything, there's freaking leaks in the ceiling there, Old Trafford. They look over here and they must think the Bucks play at the Taj Mahal. It is wild. So there, I try to break the entire thing down for you. About 4 or 5 minutes. I know that's all the rage on social media, but let's talk more about the team. We're going to do that with our guy, Josh Queipo from Pewter Report. What's up, buddy? I mean, it's only up for here.
Well, I would say it's only up from last year, and I'm doing great, Jay, and thank you so much for having me on. But I want to put a little extra context into that team report card, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
And that is, I think it's much more important to look at the individual ranks as compared to the year before. So if you go back and you look at the 2024 report card, the Bucks players only rated the team worse in one of those categories, literally just one. And I think I've got it here. Let me see if I can find it. It was the training room went down by like a third of a grade, or like, I guess from like a minus where it was a full grade. But overall, if you look at it like by each individual category, they improved in almost every single area, save 4, and only went down in 1. And they were the 10th most improved team year over year, if you use like a weighted looking at every single area. So it was worse last year. They've improved based on the player responses. It's hard to see that because I guess a lot of other teams also improved, because technically they went from 24th last year to 27th. But when you look at each of the components, there was actually a lot of improvement year over year, and that's a good thing. Does that mean that they're anywhere near where they need to be? I would say probably not, but at least the arrow is in the right direction.
Silver lining Josh Queipo, they call him, guys. That's what they do. And I know a lot of people are hitting us up too, talking here about, our guy Nick down there. Is it more likely that this is proof that the Glazers do view the Bucks like they view the soccer club, or proof that they desperately need to redesign or renovate Raymond James? See, that's the thing. Going over there, and Josh, have you ever been over there to Manchester? All right. So Josh, I've been there 3 times, and it's so strange to walk in that place and figure that they're one of the top 10 most profitable franchises in all of sports, because it's like across the street from like a Walmart parking lot. You have to walk through like this industrial village there to get there. And it is so crazy. Once you turn the corner, you're like, oh, there's Manchester United. And you're looking around, you're like, this isn't great. And when you take the train into Manchester, you take it in, usually going from east to west. And in northeast Manchester, where Manchester City plays, it's like everything's lit up. There's soccer fields where you can play with your kids before the game. It's like a little world over there. And then Man U's in the middle of like some industrial thing. And I'm like, I'm cheering for the right team. I know this, but it's in the wrong. They haven't invested. And there was leaking. There's like they say the 3rd largest waterfall in England is Manchester United, when the leak in the roof comes down in the Stretford end. Like, oh my gosh, it's so rough. But we don't nearly hear that enough over here. People over there, we don't even want to tell them we're American when we're over there. We don't want to scare the crap out of them. Or we're more concerned with our health and safety. Over here, people don't say much, because what happened with Tom Brady and everything kind of quelched any issues with the Glazers. But let's talk about the team and talk about the guys on the field. Obviously, everybody's speaking up at the combine the last couple of days. I want to ask you about Chris Godwin first before we get into some of the prospects and everything. Sure. What was your takeaway after hearing what Todd Bowles had to say, after hearing what Jason Licht had to say about Chris Godwin? What is your takeaway on their belief and their words about him, and the reality that he's going to either be on this team or applying his trade somewhere else next season?
I think the number one takeaway I got, and Jason Licht said it last year, right? Like, and it was this time last year. It was at the combine where the Bucks were set to lose Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Levante David. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Also, there were deals to be done with Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tristan Wirfs, although the team had a little bit more control over those deals. And Jason just said, they want to be here, and we want them here, and we feel good about that. And they kept every one of those players, right? And he said basically the same thing about Chris Godwin. And I also think actions speak louder than words. And there was a really big action last week, which was that the team and Godwin agreed to push back the void date on his current deal or his expiring deal to basically right before free agency. And what that does is it's a mechanism that allows them to still get a deal done and still prorate what would be the dead cap charge if the deal does void, if he doesn't come back to the Bucs. So that void date was supposed to be, I want to say February 12th or February 13th, in which case, if they worked out a deal between the February 13th and free agency, they would still have to incur the entire dead cap charge of almost $19 million. Instead, they pushed that date back so that if they are able to work out this deal, that $18 or $19 million dead cap charge is really still only $7 million in this year, and it continues to prorate over 2026 and 2027. That action, combined with what Jason Light said, still has me very much thinking that Chris Godwin's going to be a Buccaneer next year.
Doesn't it make sense, though, Josh, if you have that dead cap money, to just sign him for a deal that's probably not going to be a whole hell of a lot more expensive than that? Like, what, because I look at what Mike Evans is making. I look at Chris Godwin, and he can't, coming off of a second season-ending career, a season-ending injury, go, hey, I want $35 million, right? Like, you think it's probably going to be around the 20, somewhere around that range. Yeah. But doesn't it make more sense to, like, if it's going to be just a couple of more million, to just keep the guy? Obviously it's not just because of charity and because you like the guy, he could be a productive receiver still, but I mean, financially, doesn't it make more sense to kind of keep him around, even if it just cost a couple of million more dollars, because you're going to have to spread that dead cap anyway?
I think a lot of it comes down to where he's at in his rehab, because this isn't just a run of the mill injury. Like, this was a fully dislocated ankle. This had to do with a lot of ligaments, if I remember correctly. Like, this is a serious injury. And I don't think that Chris is asking for $35 million. Like, I think he understands that the injury did dampen what he could ask for. I have no specific insights into this, but if I had to venture a guess, I think Chris is probably somewhere around 24 or 25 as his opening, this is what I think I'm worth. Because up until that injury, he was playing like a $30 million receiver, right? So that's him coming down off of where he probably would have been if he was able to play out the entire season. And the Bucs are probably somewhere conservatively around like 16, 17 million. And that's why I think that they'll come to a deal. My projection's 19 million. Some others out there, I think Pro Football Focus has them in around 20 million APY. But I think a lot of it also comes down to what's the guarantees look like. I think the Bucs are probably going for less guarantees, probably all within that very first year, whatever the signing bonus may be, with mechanisms to get out after 1 year if he doesn't return from that injury in the best condition or able to return to form. So I think that the negotiations will probably center around guarantees more than the APY overall. With that said, having even 80% of what Chris Godwin was last year, with $11 million less in dead cap money, I still see as a much more favorable position than taking the full dead cap charge and not having Chris Godwin having to fill those shoes.
Right. So I don't think that figure is irrelevant. Do you?
I don't, but from my conversations with people in the Bucs organization, they enter all of these saying, we're willing to accept the dead cap charge. Like, that's already formulated into their thinking.
Right.
And there are some pros to that, because if you get out of that dead cap charge completely in 2025, you're clean in 2026 in terms of the
so
bonus.
Just by signing him to a contract, right?
Yeah.
They take that to account. So I understand what you're saying. So it's not completely irrelevant, but they're by no means handcuffed to having to pay that guy.
Correct.
I just look at it as a ballpark number, right? I look at it as a ballpark number of like, yeah, that would suck. And we know that they've been able to navigate through a much larger number with the Tom Brady deal. Yep. But with that number, it almost gives them kind of like a starting point of looking at either side, right? All right, Correct. Here's their dead cap money. Maybe we got you here. You're here. If we're near our cap money, if you're near the dead cap number, like, I think it'd just be an easy equation if it's somewhere around that dead cap money. It's obviously they can compute it a lot easier than all of us, but I just feel like it's just like a nice round number. I don't know if it's necessarily irrelevant, but I just think it helps when you're trying to mathematize the entire product.
I think that factors into it, but the big thing with the Bucks is they don't just look in the current year. They look at how does this affect future years. And any new contract is going to have dead money associated with 2026, 2027,
Right.
and they want to make sure that they're making a smart deal for not only the present but also the future. I think Jason Light's comments just yesterday to the media proves that they always have an eye to the future, and most of their moves are not done in a vacuum of looking at just this year.
Josh, what do you think about them, even if they bring Chris Godwin back, drafting a wide receiver in the first round?
In the first, it would have to be the right wide receiver. I think I've seen some mock drafts where Tet McMillan from Arizona
Yep.
falls to them. A talent like that at 19, I wouldn't have a problem with it because, again, you have to prepare for life after Mike Evans. And Tet certainly fills the profile of like an X, a typical X receiver, which is what Mike Evans plays. And while Jalen McMillan had a really nice end of last year, he's not somebody that I look at and say, well, you don't look to improve upon this. And I could see a world where if Tet falls and the Bucks take him, Tet becomes kind of that 3. Jalen still is going to get his snap counts. We saw last year the Bucks ended up without their top 2 wide receivers, so it strengthens the depth at a very critical position. And a year or 2 from now, you've got Jalen and Tet as a part of your upcoming core. That's just good roster building.
McMillan and McMillan sounds like a law firm. That'd be
right.
Pretty cool. My only reservation there, Josh, is that we also heard from Jason Light about his. We heard from him he was very transparent about we got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. And it's not when you got to get better on the defensive side of the ball, you don't just need starters in those positions. You also need depth, right?
Yep.
So that's what concerns me is I understand we're worrying about life about Mike Evans, but Mike Evans doesn't want to hear about life after Mike Evans. If Levante David comes back for another year, he's not worried about a draft pick, right? This is a team that's a perennial playoff contender now. And they need some impact players on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's trade, free agency, or through the draft. So if you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, I mean, who are some of the guys that you're looking at? What are some of the positions that need to be filled for this Buccaneers team? Because I think that's a big deal when it comes to not just being a contender in the NFC South or the NFC, but also contending for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think at all levels of the defense, you can look to improve. And I bet that the Bucks will make a lot of moves in free agency. They may not play at the deepest end of the pool at every position, but I do think they are going to look to bolster the depth there so that when they get to the draft, and I think Jason said this yesterday, he would feel comfortable where there's not that position of need that he's forced into a pick, but it really is finding the best player available. And so like just in free agency at cornerback, the 2 names that I like, one at more premier guy, one of the bigger names out there, Charvarius Ward from the 49ers. I love Paulson Adebo from the Saints, and he's coming off of a season where he missed some time due to injury, had a great 2023. I think that he could be a target for the Bucks and one that they could get actually decent value on like a 2-year deal.
Right.
At linebacker, obviously, I think every organization wants Zach Bond after the year he had last year.
Right.
I don't know if Philly lets him out the door, but some under the radar guys who I think could improve that area would be Tyrell Dotson, who played with Miami and Seattle last year. Ernest Jones, who played with Tennessee and Seattle. Those are 2 that I really, really like. Or Jamian Sherwood from the Jets. All 3 of those, I think, can help improve that linebacker room. And then at safety, again, I don't know if they're going to sink a lot of money into safety because they've already made Antoine Winfield Jr. the highest paid safety in the NFL. So that's one where you look for like a buy low candidate, which is exactly what Philly did with Bond last year, right? And he ended up blowing up. Obviously, that's like a 99th percentile outcome, but somebody like Jason Pinnock, who played with the Giants, had a really good 2023 next to a very good safety in Xavier McKinney. Didn't have a great 2024 when the Giants changed their defense a little bit and asked him to play center field more. I think he plays better closer to the line of scrimmage as a box safety. So I think those are some different names that could be really great. I think interior defensive line is a low key like area where the Bucks could stand to improve depth, especially the way Todd Bowles rotates his defensive line. Somebody like Poona Ford would be Like I would do backflips if the Bucks grab Puna Ford because he's always a value. He's been signed to a bunch of one-year deals over the last few years, always outplays the contract that he gets. And I think he would make for a really great depth addition there. The free agent market at edge is a little tougher. It's real narrow at the top. It's kind of like Khalil Mack, who I just don't think will get away from the Chargers. And I don't think the Bucks really be in on him, especially because he'll probably command over $20 million a year. And at some point he's got to fall off, right? There's Josh Sweat, who I wouldn't mind, but like a low-key signing there would be like Josh Uche. I would love that because he brings such efficiency and he's somebody you can rotate. And then there's a good chance they just announced it today that the Titans are allowing Harold Landry to seek a trade partner. He's due $17.5 million in each of the next 2 seasons. And he's probably not worth that kind of cash flow. So there's a good chance that he ends up getting released. And then I think that he's a good candidate on a little bit more of a value contract to be a part of like a rotation. So those would be some guys that I think if Light kind of pursues some of those guys, then when you get to the draft, it's about where is the value. And it doesn't really matter what position you're targeting. It really comes down to where can you find the best player at the position or at the place that you're picking.
Yeah, you'd like to have the first best corner rather than the 4th best pass rusher, right?
Correct.
I mean, things like that. Everybody's going to want the kid out of Marshall. Let's sign up for him. Yeah, I know that a lot of people love him after what they saw at the Senior Bowl. Everybody and their mother was talking about this guy. But I look at the interior linebacker position, Josh. Even if Levante David doesn't come back, I feel like that's a position there where you're gonna have to throw some resources in, probably from multiple areas. Linebackers for in the draft. I mean, I was looking at the kid Carson Schwarzenegger from UCLA was another guy. Campbell from Alabama. I saw a mock draft yesterday that had him going to the Buccaneers. So any of those guys you like for the Buccaneers if they're there at 19 and they really think that's a good fit?
There's really not a linebacker that I think is worthy of that kind of draft capital.
Okay.
The only one that I think consensus is really high on is Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. Right. And I think a lot of it will come down to how he tests here in Indy this week. But one of the things that everybody's praising Campbell for is his zone instincts, like his ability in coverage. And what I've found just from my years of draft scouting is every year you hear about guys coming into the draft who have these great zone instincts. They're great in coverage. And then they get to the NFL and it's a whole different world. None of them are good in coverage. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. It's a whole new ball game. Right, and most linebackers don't become good in coverage until their 3rd, 4th, 5th year. And even then, it's a lot, not even the guys that you expected when they were coming into the draft. So for me, I'm not as big on his functional movement as a lot of other people that I absolutely respect are. Mm-hmm. So I have him a little bit lower. He's linebacker 3 on my own board right now, and I've scouted about 9 or 10 at this point. The one that I'm highest on is Pooh Paul out of Ole Miss.
Pooh
Paul, yes. So his name's Chris Paul Jr., but he goes by Pooh Paul. I know he goes by it because that's actually how he had his name card at interviews today in Indy. So that is a legit nickname for him. But he's somebody who I think moves Pooh Paul. All right. So I think he moves really well in space. He comes downhill really well. He lays the boom. He's a secure tackler. I just think the hip movement, the fluidity, everything about him in space, I think would upgrade the Bucs room there. I do like Schlesinger out of UCLA. He's linebacker 2 on my board. And then like a low key, I would not be surprised if the Bucs address linebacker early in the draft, say day 1 or 2, and then come back with a day 3 guy. And somebody I really like for that would be like Teddy Buchanan out of Cal. And he spent, I want to say 3 or 4 years at a small school in California. I think it was UC Fullerton, if I remember correctly, or UC Davis, and then transferred to Cal. And he's a playmaker, made a ton of plays on the ball. I think he's a little more twitchy than he's getting credit for, and he could surprise some this week in Indy with some better testing and probably jump up a lot of boards. I think right now he's consistently mocked as like a 7th round guy. I could see him being an earlier day 3 kind of linebacker.
Wow, I'm still stuck on the poop hall thing.
Poop
I think
ball,
that's
baby.
unbelievable. There's so many people are just gonna draft him for that. It's almost like well, the Bucks got Bucky Irving. I mean, it would have been good to get TJ Tampa, right? I mean,
Right?
they need to get TJ Tampa and Bucky Irving standing next to each other. Anybody named Bay? That'd be so funny. Tampa Bay, that'd be so phenomenal. Oh man! All right, what else stood out to you, Josh? Before I let you go, what else stood out to you about the comments so far from the combine from either Todd or Jason Lane?
Well, I think they both mentioned that interior defensive line was a little bit of a strength of this draft, and that's what I've heard. I haven't gotten to interior defenders yet in my own draft scouting. So, and you got to remember, Vita Vea is approaching 30. The Bucks have not touched his contract. I want to say they probably won't this year. They didn't last year, and what I mean by that is they're not restructuring it to create cap room in current seasons and more dead money at the end. That is usually a sign that the team is going to move on from a player at the end of their deal. So Vea is 2 years away from the end of his deal. He's approaching 30. He might actually be there already. It seems like they are preparing for a post-Vita Vea world, and Logan Hall is coming into the last year of his rookie contract. So
wait, that's a bold statement right there, my friend. I don't know if I've heard that, but you think the Buccaneers are going to be moving on from Vita Vea at the end of his contract?
I think that they're preparing for that. So
wow, okay.
Whereas you see with a lot of these other contracts, they've been willing to push money down the line. They did it with Chris Godwin. They've done it with others. Last year, they could have created cap space by restructuring Vea's contract, and they chose not to. They took the full hit that he was set to have when the offseason started.
What if they do that this year? What if they do that this year, Josh?
Then again, he would be a larger cap hit. I can pull that up here in just a second. They have other people other players that they can touch, so they don't need to. But it's usually a sign if they're not touching the deal that they want to minimize the dead cap at the end of the player's contract. So Vea is set to be a $22.5 million cap hit this year. And they could reduce that by somewhere around 12, 13 million, if my off the top of my head math is correct. And I don't expect them to. And as of right now, he's only set to be a $2.2 million or $2.3 million dead cap hit in 2027. So I think that they are preparing for a post-Vita world. That doesn't mean that they won't try and re-sign him if he continues to play really well. They're just preparing for it, just in case. So when you have that, Vea will be a free agent after 2026. Hall will be a free agent after 2025. Greg Gaines is already a free agent. Will Golston is 87 years old. The interior defensive line becomes a little bit more of a need than I think most people are thinking about. So you combine that with the fact that the Bucs seem to think that that is a deeper position group in this draft. Don't be surprised if they take an interior defensive lineman, a defensive tackle, even as early as day 2 of the draft.
You heard it right here. Josh Queipo from Pewter Report. The Bucs possibly readying themselves and preparing for life after Vita Vea. This is why you got to follow this guy, Josh_Queipo. This is why you got to follow our folks at Pewter Report, pewterreport.com. All the great stuff. They have you covered. All things Buccaneers all year long. Josh, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Talk to you again soon, buddy.
Sounds great, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bringing the heat. Bringing the heat. Josh Queipo in the house. Unbelievable. That is some really, really good stuff for all of the discussions about the different position groups that the Buccaneers could target in the upcoming NFL draft. Interior defensive line. Make sure that when you let people know, you heard it here first on the Recher podcast of the Buccaneers possibly preparing for life after Vita Vea. You know what you got with Kalijah Kancey. And yeah, maybe you fortify that spot with the 19th pick in the draft or a second-round pick. But this team needs help defensively, whether it's the interior defensive line, whether it's the cornerback position, interior linebacker spot. Just throw as many resources as you can. I understand what people are saying. You got to prepare for life after Mike Evans, but I just don't think that would be smart, especially if you're bringing Chris Godwin back. If Godwin doesn't come back, then okay, I can kind of see what you're saying, and you want to have that 3-headed monster. But if you're going to bring Chris back, Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, I know Trey Palmer, they like Cam Johnson. They get contributions from those 4th, 5th receivers like the Ryan Millers of the world. You got Rakim Jarrett as well. I don't think that's smart. I don't think that makes a lot of sense if you're going to go out there and you're going to bring in a wide receiver at 19 when you have so many holes on defense. If you only had a couple, if it was like one or two and you had some good depth, I'd understand, but you need a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't think it'd be smart to draft a wide receiver right there at 19. All right, let's continue the fun. Let's do something we haven't done ever before on the Jay Recher podcast. We're going to bring in two guests on the same camera, the same phone, the same computer, and it is cousins and best friends ever. I don't know if you're best friends, but I just named it. Alexa and Cole Russo. Alexa, the standout for the UT softball team. Cole for the baseball team. Cousins. They've grown up together. Now they're playing at the same school. What's going on, guys? How are you?
We're good. We're thankful that you're having us. We're excited to get started.
It's amazing. You know, I was just watching your video, your TikTok that you made for the UT softball, where you had two of your teammates like under your arm with the blankets. I didn't get it at first, and then I got it after. And you guys, that was just hilarious. How many of your family members are tuned in right now? All 97,000 of them?
Yeah, we sent out the big group text with the link, so they all should be tuning in.
How many people are on the Russo group text?
We have a couple.
We have
we have a couple different ones. We got one exclusively with all the cousins, Paulie, Lizzie, and Abby, and all the cousins. So that's the one we talk in most. And then of course we have the big one with 30 plus.
30 plus. Oh my God, that's amazing. And shout out to the entire Russo family. Great people, and you guys always make me feel like family too. So I love you both, and it's just so cool for everybody that doesn't know. I mean, I've seen both of you guys grow up for the last 20 years. I remember watching both of you playing on the field, and Alexa was playing baseball and Cole swinging a bat 2 times the size of him, taking these big old donkey hacks. And now you're playing at the same school. Alexa, what does it mean? We'll start with you. What does it mean to be able to play at UT at the same time as Cole?
It's really exciting. I thought it was cool just to play at the same place that my dad and then actually my 3 uncles played at. So I thought that was a big deal. But now having Cole here, it's super exciting. We lift together twice a week. We hit together. So it's exciting. And it definitely makes the family vibe obviously feel more intact that he's here.
And Cole obviously going to some different places and now coming home to UT and see Alexis there the last couple of years. I mean, what is that like to know that, you know, there's a really good chance at some point during the night, there's a Russo hitting a linea or laser beam somewhere on the field?
Yeah, it's been incredible. Just coming here, talking to Alexa, before the process, and being able to, hear about the program. And my uncle, of course, played here. My dad played here, and just being able to wear 33, which Alexa wears, and my uncle wore, is something that is really special to me. Just being able to, come back home and play. It's been great.
Let's go right to talk about Dad. Alexa, just talk about your father, Paul, and what he has meant to your entire journey and how special it is to rock that same number that he wore when he was doing big things there at the University of Tampa.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to compare. He's definitely at the top of the list when it comes to coach and probably best friend. So it's he knows my swing more than anybody. He knows, if I'm feeling anxious, he can see everything. So to have him, it's definitely comforting to have my family at every game and having him there, and he's watching from the 6th floor of the parking garage. He's been doing that for 6 years. But to be able to wear 33, I got lucky. I got to pick my number my freshman year. So my coach offered me 33, nobody had it. So I felt it was only right, because I did wear 27. Me, my brother, and my dad all wore 27. So it was nice to switch up and we wore 27 for my mom. So to wear 33 for him, it kind of felt like it was just a perfect match.
And Cole, what does it feel like for you, following in your dad's footsteps? He's been such a big part of your baseball journey as well. I mean, I've coached with both of your dads over at Hit Factory, and, just to see Pat, who's on the field, they're both still on the field all the time, and to be able to follow in your dad's footsteps and to put on, the red and black there. What does that mean?
It's been great. It's been great just knowing that, my dad played here, and being able to come back to where he graduated from and to play at University of Tampa has been Fantastic. And I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. It probably is Alexa, then Paul, then Pat, then Cole, because everyone says, Alexa's got a beautiful swing. So when it comes to 33, I'm probably at the bottom of that list. But no, it's been fantastic being able to, just come back and play where my dad played and where my uncle played. And now being able to, watch Alexa on a day-to-day basis is I can't thank it enough. It's been fantastic.
All right. So a lot of times I know people ask you baseball questions, but I'm going off the reservation here a little bit. And I'm going to ask you about somebody. And I'm going to ask you about your mom. And Cole, we'll start with you. Everybody talks so much about your dad and, the UT and the affiliation there, but just talk about your mom. And you, I love both of your mothers, strong women. Every time I see each one of them, they come over and we give each other a warm embrace, a big hug. And they are so key and pivotal to not just your growth as an athlete, but also as a human being. So Cole, your mom, just talk about her and how instrumental she's been in your development, just in your life.
Yeah, she is the greatest gift from God. She is truly my best friend. My mom is someone on and off the field is the number one supporter. My mom has had my back through the ups and downs, through the highs and lows. And she is, it doesn't matter if I want to talk to mom about something that happened at school or something that happened on the baseball field. My mom is open ears 24/7. I can just, remember, times where, sometimes it's hard to talk to dad. Dad is the coach. Dad is the guy that understands baseball. But, being able to go to mom is something special. Like she has, my mom is very intelligent and is very smart, and being able to talk to her about some things where, maybe I can't talk to dad. It is fantastic. Be able to go to mom and say, you know what, mom, let's just talk about this. And hardly ever are we ever talking about baseball, because she knows that, I talk to my uncle and I talk to my dad a lot about the baseball side. So when I go home, it's, what, hey, Cole, how's your girlfriend, or, how's school going? So it's something where I can take my head to a different place and talk to mom. And, me and my mom have something. It's, you are my dream. Like I dream of having the perfect mom, and that's my mom. So I cannot thank her enough to, being able to be there and just to talk with her.
And Alexa, your mom, I mean, God bless her. She's been around all of you athletes, and, it's just so funny to be able to see all the different, with Paulie going one way, you going the other way, and the boss, as I call her, your sister Talia, like running around. Your mom, the unsung hero of the Russo clan for many, many years. Just talk about her if you can.
Yeah, she's definitely, I would say, the backbone of everything. She's been through it. She's been a big league wife, and she's been the mom of a professional athlete and then a college athlete. So she's been through it all. She has a lot of experience, and it's just unwavering support that, you could only hope for. I saw it with my brother, even when he played at South Alabama, and they would go up there every weekend. So being able to play at home in front of them and being able to have that backbone and support that, it's endless love and endless support with no matter if it's softball, if it's school, if it's going through life, a great mentor, for work, and just to be a great mom. I definitely have some good people to look up to.
You got that right. Alexa,
Shout out Mel. I love Mel.
Shout out
Mel.
Your moms are the best, your siblings, your cousins, and that's the best part, like the extended family, right? Like there's so many people that are like Coach Tom, right? Coach Tom Garvey deserves a shout out, right? Like he's another guy that, he's a zig-zag brother. He's up there in the 6th floor. You'll find him regardless. He'll be at a TC game, a UT game. Shout out to Coach Tom Garvey. He's the man too. Alexa, your journey has been pretty freaking wild with the car accident and tearing your ACL, and then now being back at UT once again. And, big hit a couple of weeks ago, late in the game. It just, you're swinging the bat so well, and it just seems like this year everything's falling into place for you. Just take us through where your mindset is at this year, especially when you're at the plate, because it seems like, you're probably the most dangerous hitter in that lineup.
I've definitely never felt more prepared for a season than I have now. Like you said, in the past, I was always fighting back some injuries, and my trainers, Nicole Gabriel training, her and Johnny over there, I've never felt more prepared for a season, mentally or physically. Being able to work with my dad full-time hitting and stuff like that, it's definitely prepared me with a new approach to take, and to just be myself. It's taken a lot of hard work, but then again, I've never felt more prepared. Our strength coach here, he's great. he takes a big part of the mental side of baseball and softball. He's an alum, and he won 2 national championships here. So it's great to have him, and it's great to have a big support system. But I've definitely never felt more prepared, and just a shout out to those guys.
Cole, I was at your game the other night, and one of the things that somebody came up to me and said was that you were one of, if not the best teammates on the entire team. And again, knowing you guys for as long as I have, I mean, I've seen you hit balls from one county to the next, but to hear things like that, it makes me proud, right? It makes me happy to be able to hear those kind of things. But there's just something special, and I'm not taking anything away from softball, but there's something special about UT baseball where, obviously you have Joe Urso there, who's a multiple-time champion, but it doesn't take long for people to come there and just immediately get in and be part of the family. And you've obviously known, and I love to see, Russo to Saladino or Urso to Saladino to Russo, which is, I mean, you want to talk about historic names in baseball and softball in the Tampa Bay area. Those are 3 of the pillars right there. But to be able to go there and play for Joe and to play for Sammy and to play for Jose and to be around kids that you grew up with, Shorty's on the team, Austin Grouse as well. I mean, what is that like to be able to go to a place and, yeah, maybe from the outside it's probably easy for them, but it's another thing to be able to see that and to be able to have it come to fruition. What is that like to be a part of such a family so quickly there?
Yeah, it's been great ever since, I've got on campus. I've been playing with my best friend, Austin Grouse, since I was 6 years old. I'm getting to play with JD and Nico, and it's been, nothing but excellent, coming from, Coach Urso, Coach Melitello, from Jose, from the whole staff. It's been, that family oriented, what everyone talks about. I went to Jesuit High School, and you have that brotherhood, and it's the same here. Like, they instill in you greatness, and, you get players in here and everyone say, oh, it's easy, but in reality, it's not. Like, the coaches do such a good job, with working hard, with practicing and doing all that kind of stuff. I know Jose's in the office, every day at 9 a.m., 7 a.m. after he drops his kids off, and he's watching film. Like, they work really, really, really hard on a day-to-day basis. A lot of that goes unseen. But all of our success is because of them. So, it's been a dream to be able to, come play at home with, family, friends, people I've known since I was little, and, giving them all the credit is where it's due.
All right, let's have a little fun. Let's play a game here. Do you guys want to play this game together or separate?
Together.
Together.
Let's do it together.
Okay. All right. Who's got the best swing in the Russo family?
Alexa.
Out of everybody. We're saying this is everybody.
Everyone. Alexa.
I was going to say.
That's why I think you should do this separate.
Okay. I'll go first.
You're not going to compete here. It's just I'm going to ask you questions like this, and you guys give me different answers. All right. So best swing. Cole says Alexa. Who do you say, Alexa?
I'm going to say my brother, Paul.
Paul. Okay. All right. Who is the honorary Russo?
I don't know.
I'm going to go Trip. Trip's my guy. I ride with Trip.
No, he's a Russo. Who's an honorary Russo? Like, who is not part of the family?
Oh,
you got to go Coach Tom.
Coach Tom for me, for sure.
Biggest supporter of them all.
He's amazing, isn't he? Like, does Coach Tom ever have a bad day?
Never.
If anybody out there watching has never seen Coach Tom's videos on Saturday morning with the cigar and the different hat of a college or high school baseball or softball team, it is wild. Who are you calling late at night at 1 o'clock in the morning if your car breaks down?
I'm calling my brother Trip.
I'll probably call my dad for sure. I know he's up. He stays up late till 1, 2 in the morning. So I know he's up. I'm definitely not waking him up. He doesn't go to bed till I get home. So that's my first call.
Who talks the most?
Talia.
Talia.
Wow. The boss.
Talia.
The boss, Talia. All right, here's the other one. If there's one piece of pizza left, who's definitely eating that pizza?
Cole's dad, Pat, I think, is taking it for sure.
I would probably say myself, to be honest. I'm probably gonna munch on it.
Which one of your current teammates would you say is the most reliable?
You can go ahead.
The most reliable. Are we talking inside softball or outside softball?
Both.
All right, I would say most reliable is Lily Keister. She definitely she shows up in softball. She's clutch. Outside of softball, I would say one of our right fielders, Joey. She's pretty reliable. She's always answering the phone.
I would say inside the field, Carson Queso. I mean, my guy, I can go to him with whatever. He's always going to have a good answer. I would say outside the field, my boy Austin Grouse. So, I've known him since I was 6, and he's been, a backbone of the career. So I can go to him for anything.
Favorite non-UT teammate of all time?
Non-UT. This was actually my travel ball teammate. She actually went to St. Leo. Her name's Alexis Mignette. She played first base. She went to Academy of the Holy Names and played first base at St. Leo.
That's a Tampa name as well, the Mignette. Yeah. What do you got, Cole?
This is gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna have to go with my brother. Just Trip, just playing with him has been, I can't thank him enough. That's my guy for sure.
Adrian College legend. If you know,
Mr. Empanada president, baby.
Oh man, go get your empanadas now, Mr. Empanada. One concert ticket. If you could go see one concert right now, who would it be?
Either Megan Maroney or Riley Green. I'm big into them right now. They're on.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Cole?
Rod Wave.
All right, cool. All right, and then I'll leave one open. Can you ask each other a question? You got one? What's a question that you want to know about each other that you've never asked? It could be fun or not.
I'm going to ask Alexa.
Oh, you spaced out. Hold on. Oh, they paused right when you went to answer the question. Please come back. Are you there? Oh, of course this would happen. It's not on my end, I hope. Are you there? Remove. Add to stage. Oh, no, I think we lost them. That was the perfect time. Oh, no. Oh, man, something happens. Oh, that sucks so bad. I'm going to tell them to come back in. Oh, man. Oh, they left. Come back. Come back. Oh, that sucks so bad. It was so cool. They were doing so good. Yes. All right. Come back in. You're good. Come back in. Are you there? Oh, no. I wonder if we lost power here before and we lost the internet. So I'm wondering if that's the same thing. There's rolling blackouts in the Tampa Bay area. I wanted to get that last question in. Maybe it was Alexa shutting things down. She's like, I'm not answering your question. There's another. Hey, there we go. You're back. All right. Yeah. Flip it horizontal the other way.
This way?
There you go. Now we're cooking.
Good. Okay. Now we're on my phone.
There you go. Look at that. Resourceful. All right, Cole, go ahead. Ask that question to Alexa.
I'm going to ask Alexa what her favorite memory was when we lived together. We lived together for a little bit, and I want to ask her the favorite memory between us.
That would have to be all of us definitely playing kickball in the backyard. We were big into that. So everybody definitely playing, the whole family, even my mom, playing kickball and stuff in the backyard. That would be the best.
All right, you ask Cole one.
For Cole. All right, if you didn't play baseball, what would you want to be after this? What would your career be, or would you play a different sport?
I would definitely say golf. Golf would definitely be the sport. My dream foursome would be my cousin Paulie. It would be myself, my uncle Paul, and I would say it would be between Coach Tom and my brother. I think that would be a good foursome to have.
You would take 8 hours to get 18 holes done. You guys wouldn't stop talking.
That's
Insane.
right.
Coach Tom's a great golfer.
Oh, yeah, and a fantastic human being. You got that right. It's Cole Russo. It's Alexa Russo representing UT baseball and UT softball to the fullest. You see I got the hat up there. It's a mirror image, so it's tough for me to be able to oh, yeah, it's back here. And I got my TC. I got Jesuit. I'm representing all of Tampa here.
I love it.
You know how I roll. I love you guys. I'm proud of you guys. More proud of what you do off the field and the kind of human beings that you've grown up to be. Love your moms, your dads, everybody involved, the entire Russo clan. So keep up the great work, and let's do this again after you guys both win the national championship. Deal?
Sounds good.
Let's do it. Thank you, Jay.
All right, love you guys. Be well.
Love you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Doesn't get better than that. You want to talk about Tampa? That is Tampa. And one thing that I can promise you about this program, the Jay Recher podcast, we're not going to do the same shit all the time. It's not going to be, hey, it's we're going to talk about the same thing at the top of the hour. I was having this conversation yesterday with, my career began in radio. And yeah, okay, that's fine. And I had a great time. But the direction that the radio is going, especially sports radio, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And at the top of the hour, it's the same news, and you're worried about different audiences. And I just don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about the same things over and over and over again and just everything be about the NFL all the freaking time. Like, I don't want to do that. You guys know I'm definitely going to talk a whole hell of a lot of football. It is the most popular sport. We're going to get input from everybody. But to talk about the same freaking mundane stories about the National Football League over and over and over again, it's just not going to happen here. We're going to talk hockey. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk baseball. We're going to talk soccer. We're going to talk basketball. We're talking everything. And we're going to focus on the Tampa Bay area. Nobody else is doing this. Nobody. Nobody's talking to USF's Josie Foreman. Nobody's talking to UT's Cole and Alexa Russo. Nobody's having high school coaches on it. You want to know about the Tampa Bay area, you're going to be able to find it right here on the Recher podcast. And this is why I implore all of you to make sure that you're sharing all of this information and getting the word out and continuing to push and push and push and try to make this thing as big as humanly possible. My Patreon is going to be starting soon. The Discord is going to be starting soon. This is just the beginning. It's February 26th. We haven't even been doing this for 2 months. We already have over 1,000 subscribers. We have more partners coming in the next couple of weeks. This thing is just going to keep getting bigger and better. We have clearance from USF and from the Tampa Bay Lightning to do shows live from their facilities. Get on board. And I just want to thank everybody for the support so far, but this is just the beginning. The Recher podcast is going to be taking off, and the sky is the limit. There is no glass ceiling, nobody telling us what we can and what we can't talk about. And I really hope you enjoyed chats like that, because it's insight into one of the most historic families in the Tampa Bay area. Two of the great players right now here in Tampa Bay. Go out and watch a game. Go out and check out this University of Tampa baseball team and what Joe Urso has done all the way around. And shout out to everybody. I want to give some love to people that were tuning in. Shout out to Christopher Cole and Stephanie Baumer, double shoulder roll. How about my guy Cross Carenti in the house? What's up, Cross? Good to see you. I know your brother Roman was throwing yesterday. Good to see him back on the mound. And Selena Grouse, job well done by all involved. AG Shorty's mom, Selena. We love the entire Grouse family as well. That's why Tampa is so unique. And to be 100% transparent and honest, there were opportunities for me to go to other markets, to go work for other radio stations. And I didn't even pursue them, because it's not just about sports radio. It's not just about sports media. It's about where you're doing it. And I'm not going to say I'll never, ever leave. But as of right now, I love living here. I've proven that 20 years in the Tampa Bay area, I love this place. And I spend so much time away from my family because I really love it here. I want to answer this question. John Donovan, thank you. When you were with WDAE, was there much control on what you could and could not talk about? Now, I'm glad you asked that question. And I'm not going to say that they told us what to talk about. That never happened. I never got an edict from anybody at DAE saying you need to do this or you need to do that. I also never got anything, and this is contrary to whatever you hear from people that just talk shit about everybody. No franchise has ever said, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. Even the Rays, and we were the flagship. Last year, and I've spoke about this before, when the Tampa Bay Lightning, listen, they heard what I had to say about Mikhail Sergachev, and they heard what I had to say about Erik Erlendsson and Anthony Cirelli and having to step up. And I said very loudly that the reason why Mikhail Sergachev is here, that's the reason why Ryan McDonough is not. And some of the members of the Lightning said something to me, and we had a conversation about it. They didn't say don't say it, but they wanted to, let me know that they were listening, right? Nothing I said was personal. I never will get personal because it's not. It's about sports, right? But we had the conversation. There, you have it and you move on. But never one time did anybody at WDAE say, hey, this is what you should and should not talk about. Now, you would have meetings and you would try to service the right audience, knowing that when people are in their car, when they would be on air, right? I mean, when they would be listening to the product. So at the top of the hour, you would usually go with your number one hit. And a lot of times it would be Bucks or NFL. So at 12, 1, and 2, we would open up the hour with possibly the same thing, but with a different, different angle on it. And while that's fun, it's also not something that it was growing a little stale for me. I don't want to sit here and say I can't have a conversation with Erik Erlendsson at 1 o'clock because it's not Bucks talk. Sorry. We're having in-depth conversations every Wednesday at 1 o'clock that nobody else is having in the Tampa Bay area about the Lightning. It's not happening. Nobody around the world is having these conversations. And I think it's a lot more important to talk with you rather than talk at you. And when we can take that deep dive into certain topics and to kind of look at it from different angles and to be able to have fun and for you to be able to see us, I just think that is where we have the edge on traditional radio. And I still love it. I still support the guys. I got no beef there. I still listen to the station. I grew up listening to sports radio. I will for the rest of my life. But I like this format better. I think this format accentuates my strengths and also allows me to do things more with, content and topics that I like to talk about. And it may not be for everybody. That's fine. I don't know if a lot of other people can talk about the different topics that I can talk about. That's fine too. But if I want to talk about college baseball one day and I want to talk about WWE one day, and then I want to start an hour with Lightning talk, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that with depth, and I'm going to do it with experienced people that have covered the teams and covered these sports. So that's a great question. Again, no ill will to WDAE, but there were times where we had to move certain people to different parts, of the hour based on, hey, the research is saying that football is popular here. That's fine, but that's sports radio. I'm not sports radio anymore. I'm a podcast, a daily podcast in the Tampa Bay area focused on the biggest and the best. And this is why I have this guy on, the biggest and the best. The one guy who knows the Lightning better than anybody, the one and only Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. What's going on, brother?
I'm good. Hey, I still love the passion from you, man. That's just awesome stuff. And what I've always loved about working with you and coming on and doing these conversations with you is like, they're not hot takes, right? Like it's just good conversation, and I love it.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy. And it's funny too. And this is a great example as well. When Erik first started really coming on a regular basis because you did some stuff with the big dog over the years, but when you started coming on a regular basis, it was when Ron and Ian had you on every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And as much as it was about hockey, it was also about music, and Ron being such a big music guy. And listen, Ron's a very particular guy, and he'll tell you that himself. Ron, there's no gray area with Ronnie D. He either loves you or he doesn't care. He doesn't hate. He just doesn't care. It doesn't infiltrate his headspace. It's just not him. And Ronnie D loved Erik Erlendsson. Loved talking to him about music. Erik would bring in some weird Swedish band or Norwegian band or Icelandic group, and Ron would be fascinated. And his big deal, Ronnie D's big deal was, I have to stump Double E today. And, people every single week would tune in and they would guess the songs and they would love it. But none of that stuff was ever hot take. None of that stuff was even old school Ron and Ian where it was like inappropriate stuff. Like that was just good talk about music and hockey. And I just don't think that there's a reason why stuff like that shouldn't still be around, right? We should be able to have a good conversation about hockey for 20 minutes every Wednesday and not bore people. I mean, we're not sitting here talking about X's and O's. I mean, Erik, now we're talking about a team on a 6-game winning streak, the most exciting team probably in the NHL and one of the best in all of sports, but there just seems to be right now. I mean, it's easier to talk about them when they're doing well, but this team right now, they seem to really be finding their groove. I was worried a little bit after, before the break, because, we went 4 in a row, but now winning 2 straight since they've returned from the 4 nations, you got to be feeling good about the Bolts.
Yep, absolutely. First of all, I love the day that I got Yngve Malmstrom from Ronnie D. I still remember his reaction, is throwing his hands up and going, how did you get that one?
That's great.
Yeah, look, it's crazy what a month difference can make. And I know there's a 2-week gap where there were no games. So for them to be like, I just looked it up, they lost that game to Chicago coming back from that 14-24 stretch they had, and they were actually sitting outside of a playoff spot. And then it was tight. It was close. They had games in hand and all that other stuff. But, they were kind of in a precarious position, right? And we were wondering, well, can they get it together? And, I was getting lots of flack from people outside just telling me that the team sucked and they were not going to do anything. And, as I tend to do, I tried to take a bigger picture and say, look, if you want to look in advanced numbers are advanced numbers and stats are stats and everything else. But if you looked at what the numbers were suggesting and you match that up with the eye test, they did deserve to have a better situation than their record shows. And, and wow, record is record and this team is going nowhere. I was like, no, just let it play out a little bit. Don't overreact to a little bit of a bad stretch. And January was a difficult stretch, big time difficult stretch. And it's not an excuse, but it is reality. It's like, just let's calm the waters a little bit and let's see what happens. The 2 games against Ottawa was everything. If they'd have lost those 2 games, who knows what we would be discussing today right now. But they didn't. They dug their heels in. They committed themselves to playing a more consistent style of hockey, taking risk out of their game. And the best comment that John Cooper said last night after the game was, they're now letting the game come to them. Right. They're not forcing things. They're not trying to. And I love the comment from Ryan McDonough after that Chicago game. Nobody can go rogue right now. Right. We all have to make sure we find our way through this. And they have. And, they've put themselves in a much better position. They're playing much better defensively. We're not talking as much about turnovers. The scoring drought that a lot of these players were going through that they count on to score are coming through. I mean, Brandon Hagel's been on a tear during the 6-game winning streak. Nikita Kucherov just continues to munch points, and they're getting depth scoring. Right, I think it's 6 straight games now. You've gotten a 4th line goal. That's not a coincidence in a lot of this. So they found a way to calm their waters and get their game on track a little bit without tweaking too much of system and anything else that they could have done over the break. Even with players away. So they're just playing winning style of hockey, and the wins are coming.
And I saw you mention this last night. I want to ask you about it now. Is Andrei Vasilevskiy somehow flying under the radar this year? It's such a weird question for me to pose, but nobody has made more saves in the National Hockey League than Andrei Vasilevskiy this year, with over 1,150 saves. You look at the save percentage, you look at the goals against. I mean, he's top 10 in both of them, and it just seems like he's getting better and better and better. I mean, you're playing the Edmonton Oilers, you're only giving up 1 goal. That says a lot when you're going up against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and company. I just feel like for some reason, the big cat is just kind of, in the background, but he's probably playing the best of any goalie right now, maybe outside of Connor Hellebuck.
Agreed. Right. And like the number I always look at is the save percentage. And, I talked to Chief a lot. I know you talk to Chief a lot. That's the number he looks at. Goals against is one thing. Goals against sometimes is more of a team stat than the save percentages. But like, how are they doing that? And you look up, he's 2nd in the league in save percentage. Right. He's .921, and he's had a good stretch. It's no coincidence that the two go hand in hand. When the goalie's playing well, the team usually gets the results, and he's always been the backbone of this team. And look, he had to steal a couple of games in Detroit and Montreal right before the break. I mean, they were clearly outplayed in both of those games, but they found a way to win. Reverse karma, if you will, from some of those games earlier in January that they weren't winning when they were better. But yeah, he absolutely, he's not getting a lot of consideration for the season he's having, and that's fine. Like, he's not out there looking for people to say what a great year he's having. He just wants to go out and help his team win. And but you look at like last night, and this is like typical Andrei Vasilevskiy. He can wow you. He can make those wow saves, but he usually makes 1 or 2 stops in a game that make a difference, right? Like, there was a play last night where McDavid, one of the few times he found some space, Man, he starts revving it up at that far blue line. You're like, uh-oh, what's about to happen here? And he got one of those plays, and he came in on the backhand, and Vazzy was ready for it. He tried to go far side with the backhand shot, and he was able to get it with his right shoulder and make that save. So it's not a highlight reel save, right? Because it's not athleticism that's showing through. He just makes solid, sound positional saves time and time again because he's that dialed in. And, he'll throw the glove behind the back on Anze Kopitar type save every now and then because he's capable of doing that. But he's just back to being, not that he ever left, but he was just he's more consistent in his play. Look, there were times earlier this year you're like, that's when we're not used to seeing him let in. He certainly hasn't been that case. And so I think because of the start the Lightning had, especially the January that the team had, in some of those moments that were there early in the year, people weren't talking as much about him, but quietly he's right there. He's fourth in the league in goals against, and he's second in save percentage. So, and I think he's tied for second in wins.
What would it take for him to win the Vezina? It would probably take Hellebuck to kind of go on a little bit of a dip, and Vazzy keep playing at this level, you think, right?
Yeah, if we're going to talk winning, I'll be curious to see, because the general managers are the ones who vote on the Vezina, how the GMs vote this year. If everything kind of continues the way it's going with some of the top goaltenders, where he finishes, if he'll be back in a top 3 finalist situation. I don't think he's going to win it because Hellebuck has had such a great season, and Hellebuck's going to get some MVP considerations. He's been that big of a difference for Winnipeg this year. But yeah, it would have to take Hellebuck really going on to a slide and Winnipeg going on to a slide late in the year, and Vazzy to kind of continue what he's doing for that to happen.
Do you think this is the best Vazzy that we've seen in his career?
No.
That's scary, right?
It is. It absolutely is. You go back to some of the other years. I mean, the 21 season, the COVID year, everything that all the players were going through and some of the numbers that he put up that year for the team. And but I mean, the best we've seen him, I would say the best was probably the 21 playoffs. You think of the couple of 1-0 clinchers, right? The game 7 against the Islanders here at Amalie Arena and game 6 against the Canadians, and some of the stops that he made. That was when he was at his best. But this will be up there in terms of regular season performances. But as we know, it's all about the playoffs. How are you going to perform in the playoffs? And that's where it's going to be. That's ultimately where this team and goalies like him will ultimately be judged.
Do you think some of the forwards are playing better because of the chatter around this team needs more punch at the deadline? Because I feel like I'm looking around and I'm looking at some of these pieces going, are they playing better because of the noise? Like when you look at Gonsalves, you look at Gergensons, I feel like those guys have taken a step up in their play as of late.
Well, I think Gonsalves, being a young player, which he still is, when he came up, like he's an offensive player. And I think he put pressure on himself to be an offensive player, but he was in more of a 3rd line, 4th line role sometimes, and that's not always a great fit. And then when he would get those opportunities, he would defer, right? Because you're playing with some of the greatest players in the world. And so he would kind of back off. He wasn't shooting the puck. Like the confidence in an offensive game was just non-existent. It just wasn't there anymore. So they sent him back and told him, go get it back. Go be who you are down there, and we'll see where things go. And he's come back, and he's been a different player. And so, has that been from trade chatter? Potential trade chatter. I think it's probably in the back of players' minds for those who do pay attention to what we say in the media and what's written and what's talked about in a lot of circles. But I think with him in particular, I think it's just a young player discovering who he is. I mean, even that pass he made last night, on Asamon's goal. I mean, that's just a playmaker's play. Like he kind of curls it back. I think a guy like Gergensons wasn't being rewarded for his play. And, again, he's worthless. Why is he on this team? He's not scoring any points. Well, you're right. And, he was a guy that was sitting like -6 or -7 on a team with a +40, +50 goal differential. That kind of stands out. But that kind of tells you how good he has been playing, because he wasn't putting up points to even out that plus-minus number.
Right. Could have been worse.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
he, I just think that he has played consistent for a good portion of the year. He just wasn't getting points to show for it. And, and same thing with a guy like Asamont. I think Asamont, remember, he started the year injured. He missed basically all of training camp with the injury. He's kind of back to being the pest and the disruptor that we know that he can be, and getting under guys' skin. So I think his game has just kind of come along as he's felt healthier and healthier. But I do think it might not be the reason that players like this start to kind of find a little bit of a different situation, but certainly it's probably in the back of their mind a little bit that, this chatter's out there. If I want to be a part of this, I need to step up my game.
I know we don't love hot takes or big time superlatives here on the show, but Brandon Hagel, what would you say about him? Is he the most underrated player in the game? Is he the most improved player in the game? I feel like there's a superlative that describes Brandon Hagel, and you are so much more articulate and loquacious than I am. Give me something for Brandon Hagel, because this dude, he's insane. He's unbelievable how good of a hockey player he's become.
Yeah. Well, you want to talk about some of the great trades that go down in franchise history. That's gonna sit up there among some of the top ones, because you sit back and you think, what in the world was Chicago thinking in trading him, right? And look, some of that is the persistence of Julien Brisebois. They identified him and did everything. I mean, look at what they gave up. What, a couple of first-round picks and a couple of former second-round picks and players in Tkachuk and Radish, Taylor Radish, not Darren, in that trade. I think with the Four Nations and his fight with Matthew Tkachuk, obviously it caught everybody's attention and probably put his name on a lot of radars that didn't know who Brandon Hagel was. So he cast himself into the spotlight. But I think that little moment sort of identifies who Brandon Hagel is, and that's somebody who just plays with just pure emotion. And I think that emotion comes in every shift he plays. Like, it's just who he is. And one superlative, man, you put a writer on the spot to talk about something. It's a little bit more difficult than me sitting down and finding the right word as I go through my Microsoft Word document. I mean, that's the word that I think of when I think of Brandon Hagel, is just emotion, right? Like, you see the way he celebrates goals. And, I go back again and I invite people to go read this story that's on the website that I wrote a couple years ago. Might've been early last year. He has a couple of tattoos on his arm, and they represent two of his uncles who committed suicide a year and 1 day apart. And it's kind of, he's such a big family person because of that. And he talked a lot about this being his hockey family and finding his hockey family here. So you understand, like, you kind of get in depth to find out who Brandon Hagel is when you read that, and when you hear him talk about it. He feels he's found a home, and he feels welcome, and he's a part of something. And players who play with that type of emotion sometimes need that insulation, for lack of a better term. And I think that's what Brandon Hagel has found here, and that's why he's thrived here.
Yeah, very well said. He spoke about that at the Sneaker Soiree this year, about losing those family members. And it was supposed to be a fun segment there with Ryan Pepio and Graham Barton. Sarah Walsh did a great job, and it took us back a little bit, like, whoa, and I knew the story. And it's wild. And you're right. I mean, I think when you have a team that's so strong emotionally, right, there's teams out there that put an onus on finding good players, but Julien Brisebois puts a priority on finding great human beings. Yeah. And when you have Brandon Hagel come in, and the two biggest things that stick out to me about guys that have come in via trade are him, that first day when we interviewed him there, and him looking like a lost puppy, not knowing where to get his groceries. And then Nick Paul, when we did the Zoom call, when he was at the bus stop, and he was telling us that Steven Stamkos' wife has already reached out to his girlfriend. He wasn't even in the country yet. And he was already just blown away with the acceptance and the family camaraderie that they have for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that, you bring up another guy and JJ Moser. And I was having this conversation with Ben Pierce yesterday. Erik, it's kind of odd that a guy that's missed 28 games, he's not a big time goal scorer. He's not a guy that has a bunch of big hits like we saw from Emil Lilleberg early on in his career. But the fans really, really like JJ Moser very early on in his tenure with the Bolts, and just so great to see him back out there playing with Victor Hedman. But what is it about this kid that people have really just grown so fondly of him very quickly?
I think it's the mustard colored suits. I mean, probably he showed up that in one of the preseason games. Obviously they take pictures and videos of the guys getting out of their cars in the compound and walking in, and that kind of jumped out at you right away. But I think it's just like, you've had conversations with JJ. He wants to engage with you, right? Like, he wants to kind of sit down and have a conversation. And so I think he just speaks, from his heart, and he speaks, with such a confidence level, or whatever it is. Like, he just engages, and he makes you want to talk to him. He makes himself a person who just wants to be a part of the conversation. And I remember early on, again, I think it might have been training camp or right at the start of the year, him and Connor Geeky are the last two guys sitting in the locker room, and we're just sitting there, and those two are kind of going back and forth about, should I get an Uber? Do I need to come pick you up? And Moser's like, dude, I'm trying to save you some money here. I'll come pick you up, and we'll go to the airport together. Like, it just genuine conversations. And I think maybe that's the best thing when you hear JJ talk, is he is genuine. And then his game on the ice is just as genuine, right? He's not flashy. He's just steady. And he's been a pretty good partner with Victor Hedman, which, for the most part, we've been talking about trying to find for, ever since Anton Strawman left. And, Darren Radis was in that spot, and I thought he played, well enough alongside Hetty. But, Moser's a top four guy, and skates well, reads the play well. And I think when a player comes to a new organization and has the type of start that he had, and then you do miss him for 28 games, you realize what you're missing when he's out. And that's not to say that the guys didn't play, well enough on defense during his absence, but that's a long time to be without a player like that. And I think fans understand the importance of having him back.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way too, because in a weird way, I feel like the Lightning getting better and winning before he came back was nice, right? Because it was, all right, you're ascending, you're playing better defensively, and then you get him. And John Cooper answered my question about him the other night like that. It was almost like making a midseason trade, bringing in a guy, the top four defenseman. Based on what we've seen and how this team has played the last couple of weeks, and seeing how specifically certain players have played, does that change your opinion on what they're going to do come deadline time? And also, if guys like Geeky or Duke or Howard or any of these guys called up, does their recent 6-game winning streak change any of that? Or do you look at it as, hey, you're going to come back down to earth eventually, you're not going to win every game for the rest of the season? How does your outlook change after what you've seen the last 2-3 weeks?
Well, if I were to put on a management hat and, portray Julian Breezeball here, it shouldn't change anything. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, if you thought that certain areas needed to be addressed before, and as much as players have stepped up, it probably hasn't changed the other areas on your roster, right? So I still think that they could use a middle six forward. I don't think that has changed, even though you're getting, a couple of goals from Glendening now, and Gergensons is finally on the board, and, Gonsalves has played well, especially in some, and a guy that's shown that he can step up and play, with a point of Kucherov, as he's done a couple of times since he's come back up. But I just think they need more consistent, guy who can kind of provide some offense in the middle. I was talking in the room the other night, I'm not starting a rumor. It's just me looking at a player going, what about a Tyler Toffoli? right? Here's a guy who everywhere he goes, he just kind of scores goals, and he's out in San Jose. San Jose is not going anywhere. I don't know what his contract situation is or anything like that. I'm just, throwing speculation against the wall. A guy like that could be a really good fit in terms of what it is they're looking for a middle six. And I still, like, if I was to put on that management hat, how comfortable would you be if you get into a playoff series and your third line defensive unit, whether it's Lilleberg and Perbix, Lilleberg and Radish, no matter who it is, are stuck out there in a shift against Austin Matthews?
Right.
Like, how comfortable are you that they could kind of, hold their own? And I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that's the question you have to ask. Do you feel that you need somebody that could be more consistent in that situation? Because we know in a playoff series, that one shift can be the difference between going home and moving on.
Yeah, because you think of the years in the past, and you have like, oh yeah, you have Savard out there, or you have Sergachev or Coburn out there, like guys like that you trusted. Tyler Toffoli, $6 million per, and that's through the 27-28 season. So that would
throw that out.
Yeah, so that's too much probably for a guy that's not necessarily a spring chicken either. He's 32, he's going to be 33. But that, even though that's not the right answer, a guy like that. And yes. I want to throw a name at you that I like, and he's got some history with the Bolts. Not great, but this is a dude that brings size. He brings tenacity, and he's $5.5 million for the next 3 years. And that's Josh Anderson, another guy, that type of player where he's a middle six guy. He's got a big right-handed shot. He's 30 years old. He's had playoff success, a little cheaper than Toffoli. We know the salary cap is going to go up the next couple of years. I think if it's not those two guys, it's that type of guy, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's a guy who can play second line if you need him, can play third line if you need him. And look, this team is built a little bit differently because, you saw it last night. Cirelli and Hagel are their matchup line, and no matter who else is on the wing, and happened to be Gergenson's last night. So your third line is not necessarily a typical checking line, right? Because it was Cirelli that was matched up against McDavid last night, and they used point line against Draisaitl when he wasn't playing with McDavid last night. So this gives you a lot of insight into the way John Cooper thinks and manages his lines. So it would ideally be somebody that could play on a second line who can check and provide some scoring, but also a guy who can kind of play third line and play with Nick Paul and maybe more of a grinding type of offensive type of line rather than a pure matchup line. So those are the type of players that she wants. Stephanie wants Brock Besser. Yeah, he's UFA, and he's going to cost a lot of money at the end of the year. So
$6.65 million. Obviously, it's going to be prorated by the end of the season. So as we've seen in the past, Julian's going to try to get somebody. He's dipped into that UFA every once in a while. We saw it with Duclair and Dumba, but the return on that was very low, right? If he's going to make a Brandon Hagel type deal where he's going to bring in a guy that's going to be a big part of this team or a big middle six, and it's going to cost some assets, he's not going to trade, a first or 2 firsts for a guy that doesn't have a year or 2 left after the deal, right?
Right. Yeah. And look, he's had to go into the UFA market a couple times. He's not big on it. He always likes contract term on guys. The Goodrows and the Colemans like he did a couple years ago, as opposed to the Savards and the Duclairs and those guys. But with the cap going up, maybe it does, change their thought process a little bit, because maybe you can afford to bring in somebody that maybe you couldn't have. And that's the good news about this salary or the trade deadline for the Lightning this year, which, by the way, is March 7th. So we're just a little over a week away from the trade deadline. They have cap space, right? They're not an LTI. They've been able to manage it as well as possible with some of the injuries. That's why they only carried 20 for a good stretch there when Moser was out, so they could accumulate as much cap space as possible. So I think the latest projections is, you could bring in a guy that's about a $6.5 million player at the trade deadline at the 7th, because again, the cap is accumulated on a daily basis. So you throw money into the pot every day until it's full. So they have some space that maybe they haven't had in years past, and it won't necessarily have to be a dollar in, dollar out type of situation if they wanted to go that route. So I think it's given Julian a little bit more flexibility in his approach than maybe he's had in the past couple of years.
I know another big name that has been bandied about when it comes to the National Hockey League is Mikko Rantanen. He goes from Colorado to Carolina in that deal because Colorado didn't think that they were going to be able to come to terms with him. He is a guy, $9.25 million this year. And now there's talks about Carolina not being able to sign him and the Lightning being one of the teams that are interested in his services. What do you make of that whole thing, knowing that he is going to be a UFA after this year? And also another guy, and Stephanie brings it up, Alex Tuch. This is a guy that's got another year after this year. He's only $4.75 million. A guy that was, highly touted, and people thought he was going to be the real deal when Minnesota brought him in. What do you make of Alex Tuch, and what do you make of Mikko Rantanen?
I think Mikko Rantanen is too big fish, too much of a big fish to go hunting after. Because you're not gonna be able to sign him, right? It would be a pure rental situation, and certainly he could find a home. In that top six, that'd be something else. But yeah, you're not gonna be able to sign him because of the money he's looking for, and with the cap going up, now all of a sudden agents and everybody else. Now it's not necessarily pure dollars. It's what percentage of the cap are you taking? And that's kind of how they base a lot of things, especially with the cap going up. So Rantanen, to me, is a pipe dream, but you never know with Julian. You never know what he's doing. He keeps everything so close to the vest that a lot of the insiders don't even know necessarily what's going on until right before it happens. So a guy like Tuch probably fits that mold that we just talked about, that middle six kind of guy that can play. I'd be interested if Buffalo's going to move him because he has been one of the few guys who says he wants to be in Buffalo. He loves being in Buffalo. So, would they move him if he's one of the few guys that is totally committed, to trying to help that team turn things around a little bit? We'll see. It'll be interesting. And like I said, this is maybe a little more of a fun trade deadline approach that the Lightning have this year than years past because there's more possibilities and more opportunities that maybe weren't there in previous years. That maybe you could bring in a player with a little bit more of an impact, than what they've had in the past. Because, and look, the thing we've always learned with Julian is that he doesn't go big game hunting too much, right? He brings in the Savards, he brings in the Goodrows, the Colemans. I mean, Duclair, a good top six forward, but not a high end top six forward, right? So my guess is he'll probably go along those lines again. So like an Alex Tuch, like Robinson, guys like that.
All right, E, what do you got coming up? What do you have up on lightninginsider.com?
Hey, talking about last night's game, New Year's resolutions are made in January and forgotten about in February. The Lightning made their resolution in February so they could forget about their January. So that's kind of the theme of, the thought process going into last night's game. And I still have a story up about the guys in the locker room talking about Brandon Hagel and his impact at the Four Nations face-off and, kind of throwing himself into the national spotlight a little bit for especially a lot of Canadian fans who didn't think he deserved to be on that team and what the teammates thought of him being a big part of that. So that's all up there. Obviously, it's another busy month of March. I think it's another 15 games in 29 days coming up in March for this team. The trade deadline, like I said, is a week from Friday, so we'll keep an eye on that. So lots going on around Lightning Land and a lot to be covered.
You got that right. Make sure you go check him out. Erik Erlendsson on Twitter /XK. Not a C, 2 S's after the D. Erik_Erlendsson. Go to lightninginsider.com. Use that promo code JNZ, the three letters JNZ. Get $10 off, not just this year, but every recurring season after that. Double E, appreciate your time, my man. See you tomorrow night at Emily.
All right, bud. Be well.
See you, buddy. Good stuff there. Erik Erlendsson every Wednesday at 1 o'clock right here on the Recher podcast. And again, lightninginsider.com, support local. I can't stress that to you guys enough. It's not just having the local athletes on, it's supporting the local entities, supporting lightninginsider.com, supporting the Tampa Bay Times, supporting Pewter Report, and Joe Bucks fan, and everybody here that covers our teams. This is a growing market. This is a burgeoning city. People are moving here from all over the world, and we have to continue to highlight the sports in this town at every single level. At the prep level, my guy Jared Guthrie and 813preps.com, the collegiate level, the pro level, it does not stop. Rowdy, Sun, everybody all the way up, USF, UT, of course, the high school teams, and then the Rowdies, the Rays, the Lightning, and the Bucks. Everybody out there needs help. Everybody out there needs support. So if you're looking for a gift to get somebody, I always think that's a great idea. because sometimes you don't want to get the same old thing. Don't get somebody a gift card, an Amazon gift card. Don't get them a gift card to a restaurant. If you know they're a Lightning fan, get them a subscription to lightninginsider.com. Use the promo code. Like, you can't beat it. I've been a subscriber for a couple of years now, and every single time I need some good, pertinent information, I could just text Erik, or I'd just sit next to him in the press box and we can talk about it. That always helps too. But there's certain stuff and stories and certain angles that Erik looks at it that we get it from Erik, we get it from Ed and Cena, and that's it. Ben does a great job with the team, but it's, these guys don't necessarily work for the team. So it's a different aspect, it's a different angle. So again, I am telling you guys out there, support live, support local, support these guys that are covering our teams on a day in, day out, night in, night out basis. And for Christmas, for birthdays, for just a gift to get somebody, doing something a little bit different than getting them the same old, getting them a pair of slippers, or getting them an Elvis calendar, or getting them a gift card to Wendy's or Starbucks or Walmart or Target. No, buy a subscription to lightninginsider.com, buy a subscription to Tampa Bay Times, but just do everything to be able to help our friends and our local media here in the Tampa Bay area, because there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us. And somebody asked before about, did DAE care about what you said? No. But it's a small group. Even the Bucks, that are the most popular team here in the Tampa Bay area. I mean, NFL's king, we know that. But even then, there's not a ton of people that cover the Bucks, right? The newspapers. There used to be 2 newspapers. They'd have 4 or 5 people covering the Bucks games. Now there's only 1 newspaper. You'll have Stroud there. You'll have maybe Romano there. Maybe Joe Annette will be there. At the most, you're going to have 3 people there, right? Pewter Report probably has more people. And I know DAE at one time had more people covering than the newspaper. That can't happen. We got to keep it going. You got to keep it going. You got to keep building it up. And this is another example that, obviously the largest contingent is the Bucks. And I'd say, the Rays don't necessarily have the same, probably the Rays, the smallest, because they don't have, they have Topkin, they have Adam Berry for MLB.com, but they don't necessarily have I guess Steve Carney does, but Carney works for the MLB too. So it's a little bit different. But they don't have a guy like myself, and I will go to more Rays games this year, but they don't have a Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com type of guy for the Rays. That could be one of you out there, possibly, if you looking for a way to get into the media. But do you have the chops? Do you have the ability that Erik has? No, that shouldn't discourage you from trying to achieve your dreams and to be able to cover a team that you really want to. But it certainly helps. I got these like cards here from my guy Tom Leberger. I've never opened them. I just found them, and I just saw Richie Palacios on the cover. Let's see. Alex Verdugo, Ahmed Rosario, Pete Fairbanks, Jeffrey Springs, Trent Grisham, Austin Shenton, Zach Littell, Clayton Andrews, John Birdie. Oh, there's a good one right there. Oh. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, Jose Trevino. Oh, look at this one. Get Roy vetted. That's a good one too. Whoa. Neymar first pitch. Look at this one. For the soccer fans out there, Neymar, and then this one right here. This is a throwback now. Juan Soto for the Yankees. Pretty cool. This was like a Tampa pack of all Yankees and Rays guys, which is pretty cool. I want to answer this question real quick. Carrick Barnett, what are your thoughts on the current Man United situation, Jay? Ineos needs to go. It's unacceptable to lay off 450 employees only to pay Dan Ashworth $7 million. Questions have to be asked of Amorim too. I'm not asking any questions of Ruben Amorim. Not yet. Unfortunately, Carrick, and somebody that's been following United for the better part of my adult life, Ralph Rangnick came in, the Austrian, and said that Man United needed open heart surgery and needed not just cosmetic fixes. They needed to really shake things up to the core. And I agree with that sentiment. And I am of the believer that the results this year mean absolutely nothing when you're talking about Premier League. Cup competitions, I think you can always win because it's a one-off. Cup competitions are completely different. Look, they won the last 2 years. They were able to win a cup. Also, I think Europa League is a really viable. I mean, they're the only team that hasn't lost or drawn in the either Champions League or the Europa League or the Conference League, which is kind of wild. If you imagine that, if Man U wins the Europa League and they get entered into the Champions League next year, they finish like 13th in the Premier League, that is going to be crazy. But they can do it. They can do it. He has the experience of that international competition, and I think that may help Ruben playing against those other teams rather than understanding the rigors and playing like we saw last week against Everton, not realizing that those guys are good at second balls. Those guys are good at the free kicks. That's what Everton is all about. They're about those big guys in the middle, the Jared Branthwaites of the world that go up there and they head those balls. That's always been big, physical, rugged game. When you get them playing into a more technical game, like we saw the first time that they played, United was able to win 4-0. They made some mistakes. You pressure them. But Everton was on the front foot from the beginning of the game. So that's a little bit of a different aspect. I don't worry about Ruben Amorim. You have to give him – he didn't want to come here to Manchester United. He wanted to wait until after the season. They said, no, it's either now or never. What is he going to do? It's his dream job. So I can't judge him until what I see next year. Can't judge him on that at all. As far as the Ineos situation, they have to make a lot of tough decisions. And you're bringing in Ratcliffe, you're bringing in Barada, you're bringing in all these different guys, Brailsford, and you're having to make decisions to cut into the core of Manchester United as an entire football club, not just the squad, not just the 11 guys that are going out there to play a game. So there are going to be very drastic measures that need to be taken because this club is operating at such a rate that they are acting like their Champions League team bringing hundreds of millions of dollars. They're just not. They're not winning consistently. They're not participating consistently. So these kind of things of laying off these employees, unfortunately, has to be done. And you have to pay the Dan Ashworths of the world. And I know it didn't work out. He was in, he was out. I get that. But nobody was saying when he was first brought in that it was a bad hire. You need the football directors, the technical directors. You need the CEOs. You need to make sure that the proper hierarchy is put into place so that this team can get back to where they belong. And that's near or at the top of world soccer, world football. So I know it sucks. It's an unfortunate thing, but the Glazers are a big part of this. They really are. Them taking all of these payments and still incurring all of this debt on the team, that's the big problem. Ineos is doing what they can. I almost look at the Ineos situation kind of like with the Rays, where, you look at the general manager and you're looking at how they operate, but they're not putting the money into the team. I look at the Glazers like I look at Stu Sternberg, and I look at Ineos kind of like the president and the general manager. They're doing the best with what they got. Remember, they don't own the majority of the club, right? But they're just in charge of making a lot of these decisions. So they have to find cost-cutting measures all over the place, some that may not be too, aesthetically pleasing, some that may not look good when you're cutting salaries, when you're talking about, all the things with Sir Alex Ferguson and the former players. And it doesn't look good, right? The optics aren't good, but this team hasn't been good in a long time. About to be 20 years since they won the Premier League. That's crazy. This is one of the most popular teams in the world. They needed this. They needed a complete teardown to build them back up. And Amorim said it. Ruben said it. This is going to be, the storm is coming, and the storm is here. And I hate when people look at it and go, and they start questioning this, and they start questioning, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to happen in 2 or 3 months? Right? He just got hired a couple of months ago. Ineos has just been here. Like, they haven't been here all that long. Tough to not bring Erik ten Hag back after he wins the cup there against Man City. And there's been some great results for this team. That's the crazy thing about it. Remember, they've been to the Etihad this year, this season, and beaten Manchester City. And I know they're having a down year. I get that. But they've had some nice wins. I know they've had some terrible losses. But there's back and forth. It's not been consistent. And that's what they need. They need consistency. Tear that son of a gun down. Bring it back up. They're not going to get relegated. I'm not worried about that one bit. So you shouldn't either. But I can't question them. Not yet. Not yet. I need to see recruitment in the summer. I need guys to see that guys are going out. And I don't care about Marcus Rashford or Jadon Sancho or how any of these guys are playing there. That affects me zero. How Anthony is doing at Real Betis, that means zero to me. because they're not doing it for United. That's the most important thing. Are they doing it for United? No. Are they doing it somewhere else? Fine. You know what that's doing? It's raising their value. So when they do sell them, the Man U can get that money. But it also is shining a spotlight on what is wrong with United. It's shining a huge spotlight on why can't these guys perform here? Why don't they feel that freedom that Sancho was talking about? I don't know. I think certain players can rise above it. You see Ahmad do it. You see Bruno Fernandes do it. You see at times Garnacho do it. You see even Harry Maguire, who I still think isn't, the greatest center back in the world, but he's a guy that got his captaincy stripped from him, relegated to the bench, and he's just back fighting. He's shown some real heart. He's not bitching and moaning, complaining. It's never done that. Other guys have. They're moping around. So, again, I go back to Ralph Rangnick. This team they need that open heart surgery, and we're in the middle of it, and it's going to get probably worse before it gets better. All right, and the last thing I wanted to mention before we hit the road, because I got to head over to Ian's, because our podcast is going to be in a little bit, 3:15, 3:30. Also, some breaking news here. Looks like the Buccaneers have informed safety Jordan Whitehead they're not exercising his option bonus, making him a free agent in a few weeks. He's recovering from injury suffered in a January car accident, expected to be recovered ahead of the season. So our well wishes go out to Jordan Whitehead. Hope he feels better, but he will not be with the Bucs next year. All right, lastly, I'll answer this real quick, Carrick. Have to clean house this summer. Hoyland, Rashford, Anthony, Sancho need to leave. I say Hoyland because it's clear he's not good enough. I don't know that. I honestly don't know that, because the service to him up front is not great. It's not great, and they have to work on it. And Hoyland's young. I mean, I saw a statistic the other day comparing to other strikers at his age, right? Lewandowski and some of these other guys, Zlatan. The numbers weren't, you can't look at Erling Haaland and think that, everything's going to be fantastic. He's not going to be him. And for a team that doesn't have a ton of the ball, the team that doesn't do a great job of finding him, he works so hard in his hold-up play, and it just doesn't translate right now because they don't score a ton of goals. It'd be one thing if they were getting 25, 30 shot attempts every single week and he wasn't getting any. I'd understand that. I'd see it, like, he's not there. But there's a reason why a guy like Xerxes has done better. Why? Because he is a guy that drops off. He gets involved with the link-up play a little bit more. That's not what you brought Hoyland in. You brought him in to be that number 9. But he's got to learn. I thought it was unfair to bring him in and anoint him as the first striker being that young. He clearly wasn't a finished product. They should have brought him in and a veteran guy, right? I know Rio kind of brought it up about like bringing in a guy like Karim Benzema. I wouldn't have hated that on a shorter term deal. A guy like Harry Kane, you don't have a number 9. And that's why the talks about Victor Osimhen possibly coming in. He's a legit number 9 in the prime of his career. I wouldn't hate that. I think there's room for both Hoyland and Xerxes on this team. Xerxes is fantastic for a big guy. He is very slick, fantastic dribbling ability. But I think Hoyland has something to his game. In a different atmosphere, this team would be better. Right? The atmosphere has to change. Why does a guy like Scott McTominay go to Napoli and have some success? A guy left it all on the pitch for the Reds, right? For that badge. He scored some huge goals for Manchester United. People would make fun of McFred, right? Scott McTominay and Fred playing together. But there was a reason why Ollie kept putting them out there. Guys that did everything for the badge, guys that worked their ass off, but the systems weren't right. And there's just a lot of different things that this team needs to examine and improve on. Because this needs to not just be a Premier League power. This needs to be a Champions League and a European power. So there is a lot that needs to be taken care of. I think you got to find Mainu's right position, Garnacho's right position. I like some of these guys. I do. But Amorim has to work and work and work, and they got to be more productive. I think they've done better defensively, but just watch the game today. They're playing Ipswich. One of the biggest things that Ruben came in and said, they give up the ball too easily. I don't care what system you play. Everybody's bitching and moaning about the system they play. They should go to the 4 in the back. They should change things up. No, regardless of the system you play, hold on to the freaking ball. You're giving all the ball away to Everton out of all teams, right? Come on. Today against Ipswich Town, probably a team that's going to be relegated. Hold on to the freaking ball. Shoot. Get some shots on goal. You don't have to be in the box every time. Have a couple of worldies. You see Luka Modric score the other day. We've seen it from Ronaldo and Scholes and Nani over the years, even Bruno Fernandes. Shoot the ball early on in the contest. Hold on to it. When you get close to that 18-yard box, let him rip. Because now, if you come up, you take a shot, a goalie makes a nice save, you force a corner, or okay, maybe they hold on to it. Now the defense comes up on you a little bit. Oh, hey, they're going to shoot. And then that opens up the channels. It opens up the lanes. So I just think it needs to be a little bit more of a practical approach. And I hate people on the outside making these big noises like everything has got to change when it comes to Amorim in the system. Show some kind of modicum of patience. This isn't going to be an overnight thing. This team is not trying to just be good for 1 year. We're trying to right the ship here so that this gets like football is better when these guys are better. Like when these guys are involved, it's just better that way. Same thing with Liverpool. Same thing with Arsenal. It's better when they're fighting for championships. If not, it's almost like, yeah, it's kind of a low punching bag, right? It's not the same. Lastly, before I go, thank you, Carrot. Some great questions, Carrot Barnett. I want to mention this. Not many people are going to be talking about this, but shout out to USF, a big win over FIU last night, 6-5 at Red McEwen Field over at the USF Baseball Stadium. And a tip of the hat goes to Bryce Archie. Second start of the year, and dude was throwing heat. And shout out to the USF football team. They were out there supporting Byron Brown, Nico Grammatica, the whole crew out there. They were going crazy. Alex Golish was there. That is what Bulls Nation is all about. The green and gold, they were jacked up. It was such a joy to watch them support their teammate. But another thing that stood out to me was that there were multiple MLB scouts on hand watching Bryce Archie pitch. His fastball got up to 95 miles per hour, and after throwing only one changeup last weekend against Florida State and really struggling with his slider, struggling with that off speed, he looked completely different 7 days later. The changeup he threw multiple times, ahead in the count, behind in the count. He threw some for strikes. He threw some for strikeouts. And the slider, which was bouncing 3 feet in front of the plate last week, was a viable pitch. And he went from a thrower last Tuesday to a pitcher last night. An insane growth from that young man. And listen, I know he loves football. I know he's going to be a part of this Bulls football team with Alex Golish. But I truly wonder if baseball is not the future for Bryce Archie, because you can't teach 95. And the way that he was able to take what Coach Mitch Hannes and Coach Daniel Schlereth and the entire coaching staff has been working on with him, and in just 7 days go from, once again, a thrower to a pitcher, sky's the limit on the baseball field, on the mound for Bryce Archie. Don't be surprised if by the end of the year, he's not one of your weekend starters. He is that freaking talented. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. A big thank you to everybody who joined us on the program today. Erik Erlendsson, Josh Queipo, and my folks, Cole and Alexa Russo. I love you all. Thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Every single little bit helps. And follow me on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. The Beckles and Recher podcast today around 3:15. Make sure you subscribe so you get a notification. Tune in at 3, and we'll have a lot of fun, like we always do. Back tomorrow live at noon from Amalie Arena ahead of the Lightning's matchup with the Calgary Flames. Who do we talk to tomorrow? We got some more fun guests. You know, that's how we roll. It is never a dull moment. Oh, Tracy West from the Valspar is going to join us at 12:30. We got Ed and Cena at 1:30. A lot of great stuff. As always, focusing on live and local every day at noon. This is the Jay Recher podcast. I am Jay Recher. I thank you. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow at noon.